Hey, everybody, I'm Aaron Simmons. Welcome to another live stream of Campfire Philosophy with Aaron Simmons. And it is an absolute joy tonight to be joined by a new friend of mine, but somebody whose work I've listened to for quite a while, and that is Christian Anderson from the Christian Anderson Band. And so thanks, Christian, for coming to hang out with me and talk a little philosophy and, songwriting tonight.
Very excited.
Well, we're so glad to have you. If you are new to my channel or to Campfire Philosophy, I am a professor of philosophy, specializing in philosophy, religion, and political philosophy. And so the conversations we have here are wide ranging. But if you are watching on Substack or YouTube or wherever live, we'd love to have you hop in and talk with us. And so please drop in comments wherever you are. Those should integrate on our end, and that way we can involve you in the conversation in real time. If you are watching later, especially over on YouTube, please drop comments. I respond to every comment that comes in within reason. A recent live stream I did on Amy Grant's new single, I admit, surprised me by how well that did. I think we've now hit over 8,000 views. And so I did at some point have to kind of stop responding to every single comment because people were commenting fast and furiously. And so that was wonderful to see. But while we're live streaming, talk with us. If you watch later on, I'd still love to talk to you then. And while we get going tonight, please make sure that you go check out Christian's website so that you can book him and get him to come play at your church or your event going on, civic event, or even if you just want him for your music festival that you've got going on. Please make sure you hop over to his website and get him booked for your event because he would be fantastic. And as a drummer, which we're going to talk about this in a minute, Christian, but anytime that you can get a singer-songwriter who started as a drummer, I think you're asking for a pretty cool live show. So please, thumbs up from me. Go check out Christian's website and get him on your stage. All right, Christian. So a philosopher and a songwriter walk into a bar and a really good conversation happens. That's at least the the plan for tonight with a iced tea from a local establishment that I just frequented. So thanks for being here. Tell me a little bit just about how you came to be a professional musician. I saw your new single, which we'll talk about in a second, where you've got video of you as a kid and running around in a Superman cape and costume, super, Christian, I imagine, running around. But how is it that you went from being the little kid in a, cape to being the person on stage playing drums, writing songs, blowing up, especially CCM radio? Like, just tell me a little bit about how you got to where you are.
Man, so growing up, I always wanted to be on some kind of stage or behind some kind of camera or making movies or being an actor. Given the Superman cape, I wanted to be a superhero growing up. I feel like a lot of little boys just want to be a superhero, So I just wrote music for fun throughout my childhood, but I was forced to play piano since I was 5. I chose to play the drums since I was 8. And I played music in church growing up. My mom was the worship leader at a lot of the churches we were going to, and my dad wasn't quite the pastor, but he was usually like well, first of all, crazy. I'm Catholic, so my dad's like one of very few married Catholic priests, but he never got the title of pastor until it was only like just a little over like 10 years ago, I think, maybe. Wow. Or maybe a little less. So yeah, my mom was like the worship leader, and I was like often just playing the drums with my mom or playing the piano, and my mom was playing the acoustic guitar and singing, leading worship. Nice. And I went to study acting. I really wanted to get a fine arts degree.
Interesting.
And while I was doing that, I just felt like God was saying, hey, that's what you want to do with your life, but have you considered this? Because this might be what I want you to do with your life. And it was just this tug pulling me back to music because I've just loved music so much. I was in the marching band in high school. I was a drum major, and that's the thing in my music video. If anybody has seen that, it's a drum major mace. It's not a pimp cane. It's just
I admit when I first watched it, I was like, this is fantastic. It's like that scene from the Seinfeld episode where Kramer's walking down in the Joseph Technicolor Dreamcoat and picks up a hat and is, just, yes, the Pimp Cane walking down the street. So I admit there was a much sexier version of your video that I don't actually think obtains, though.
I think that the energy like kind of overlaps. What do you call it? Venn diagrams is out there.
Yeah.
Well, it's like just awesome, and it's like there's like Pimp
Yep.
King, and there's like drum major mace, and the awesome just lands in there. But it's a drum major mace, just for those who are wondering. I've had some comments about that. So
yeah. Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, I was just writing a lot of music for fun because I loved it. It was like my therapy, my expression, and then it became like my vision for my life, like my dream. And I was like, what would happen if I took these songs that I was just recording for fun and I recorded them for real, professionally, and I shared them with people? Because a song that I had just written for fun and I gave as a gift to a friend of mine, she was like, this was the best Christmas gift anyone's ever given me. This is awesome.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, whoa. And it kind of like impacted her life in a positive way, making her believe that, she was worth existing. There's a lot of people that feel like they aren't worth being here. Life doesn't have meaning, or, people are treating me and telling me that I'm not worth anything or that I'm a terrible person. And I wrote this song saying, God loves you. I'm going to be, the proof of his love for you, if I have to be. So that's kind of where it all started. And then I went into a studio who's like, the producer was like a friend of a friend. And that's just kind of where I got started. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know how to start, but I was just like, sometimes you just got to start.
Yeah. Just hop in. Yeah. It's funny. I mean, there's that old joke, right? That if you want to make God laugh, tell God your plans. And I understand faith in my existential philosophy as risk with direction. And the idea is that faith requires of us a risk, but not in a just sort of blind, jump into the dark. It's that you take a step some way, and that risk doesn't ever go away, though, right? It's Martin Luther King has that line where faith is taking the first step without seeing the whole staircase. But the idea ostensibly is that you're at least taking the step toward. And so it's cool that for you, the step toward was into music, away from acting in this case. But as we know from lots of musicians, from Common to Method Man to whoever, the transition from musician to actor is a pretty frequent one. So we still may see you,
Could happen.
From the Grammy stage to the Academy Award, right? So
could happen.
Well, talk to me about this idea of growing up with music being the like anchor for how you made sense of your relationship to religion. Because as some of the viewers know, I grew up in a Pentecostal community, still identify as Pentecostal. But as a public philosopher, I explicitly try to write and engage in ways that don't assume those commitments. But I have said to students of mine, an audience of mine for years, that like you can understand how I approach philosophy if you basically just recognize that I was a drummer and I grew up Pentecostal. And like if you combine those two things, everything I do as a philosopher and the way I do it makes more sense. So how was being a musician, especially being a drummer, in the context of this church culture? Was that something that integrated seamlessly for you? Did it open up your relationship to, how you understood God and how you understood, your relation to others within the church in different ways? How was the musician religion overlay for you?
It's a really interesting question. I guess they kind of merged when I was about in 5th grade. I think I started drumming. So I went to Catholic school, and it's kind of like a required thing that you go to mass once a week as a school. So like all the kids went to church, like I think it was like in the middle of the week. There's just one day we would pick. And so there's another kid who played drums, and he was in like, he was a couple of years older than me. So he was like my mentor. And I didn't take lessons from him, but I had another drum instructor. But this guy, he taught me what it meant to drum at church. And it actually meant to play quietly because no one likes drums at church. I don't know why, but that's just how it is. At least in the Catholic world.
I guess they see we Pentecostals feel differently. We think, organs should be Hammond B3s, and the drums should just have a cracking piccolo snare. None of this big fat snare drum nonsense. So yeah, different religious traditions here playing out in the musical affect.
Yeah. So it just kind of began, I guess, in that state. And then, my mom, we got moved when I was in 6th grade. My dad was positioned at a church like far away. I mean, it was only like an hour away, but it was kind of scary because I thought I was going to get pulled away from all my friends, my school, and we were going to get put at this church, in Montrose, Michigan. And so my mom was the worship leader up there, and she really needed help on, keys and everything. We didn't have someone to play. So I was just, I was in 6th grade. So I'm over here just playing, like reading off chord charts. I don't really know how to like read music all that well. So that's kind of like how music and faith collided, I suppose. But what's weird is I think it goes a lot deeper than that. I don't think that's like the why behind it. For me, I had a weird phenomenon. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I had a weird event that happened as a kid where I realized I didn't like music that had singing in it. And it was like,
interesting.
When I was like 3 or 4. And
wow.
I feel like I remember a conversation with my older brother. He's like 3 years older than me. And I was just like, I don't like, I'd be listening to a song jamming out to the beat, right? Maybe that's just the jamming out to the hook. And then just the voice would come on. And this was frequent in musicals too. When I would watch like a musical, I'd be like enjoying the movie, and then they'd just bust out into singing, and I'd be like, they ruined it. Like, what just I don't know if anybody else can relate to that. I'm probably like,
that's hilarious.
Probably the only one in the music industry. But like that was my experience growing up. And there's something about instrumental, like epic soundtracks. Maybe like my brain understood life through the lens of like Star Wars. Like that's cool. Loved like epic opera, John Williams behind like an epic story that's told quickly. And that's kind of just that's how my brain understood things. And then you got like Hans Zimmer coming out, the Pirates of the Caribbean coming out when I'm a kid, and you just kind of merge all these epic soundtracks. And I'd be dancing around my room as like a little kid, like kind of in my, I don't know, I'll be politically correct down here. Sometimes I wonder if I'm like partially undiagnosed autistic. Probably not. I wonder sometimes, because I was like jumping around the room, like imagining music in my head, and people are like, wow. I was like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But that's just how my brain operates, and that's kind of where I operate when I write music. It's just from this state of like flow and passion. And part of me believes like God uses us and speaks to us and designs us all in such a unique and cool and different way. We all have different talents and gifts. And for me, like, I feel like that's part of, if you believe in the prophetic existing today, which I do, I believe when we write songs as artists, a lot of times it's like God will put a prophetic message in that doesn't unfold until sometimes even years after that song's out, and it hits you. And that's happened with some of my songs I've written kind of like to myself. I didn't realize how much that would mean to me until like months or years later. But I guess that's kind of where it connects. It's like cool. It's just like a passion that unravels. And I feel like maybe as a Pentecostal, you might understand that.
Oh yeah.
But sometimes, man, I feel like the Holy Spirit moves through. Oh, this is where we could get into some philosophy, but I think the Holy Spirit can work through the channels of this thing called emotion, because music is just like, it's emotion and it's messages that are stronger and louder than words, in my opinion. It speaks to you like through emotion. So
yeah, interesting.
Yeah, that's kind
of. No,
I
love it. I mean, it's fascinating because, so for people listening who may not have grown up in these traditions or understand some of these words, and your references to the prophetic can sound sort of weird and kooky and Nostradamus-y. I actually think that one of the cool philosophical takes on the idea of the prophetic is actually Cornel West, who has this amazing book called Prophesy Deliverance. And what he says is he's, basically drawing on ancient Hebraic prophetic traditions and this idea that what it is to prophesy is basically to be willing to stand out of step with where one's society is now in order to anticipate and call for a transformation into which we could live, right? And so this is where you see Martin Luther King engaging in that prophetic discourse when he says, I have a dream, right? It's what would it look like for the now not to be exhaustive of what's possible? That there's a possibility that overflows and overrides where we find ourselves in ways that allow us actually to live now towards something that is not yet, which is in the Christian traditions, this idea of an eschatological logic where we are already where we are not yet. And that tension is something that I actually find really profound in terms of like debates about social justice, living toward a future society that is not yet enacted. And yet the only way it could be possible is if we make it happen in our lives today, in our relationships to our neighbors, etc. So I completely vibe with the idea of what the philosopher Merold Westphal talks about as this sort of prophetic philosophical discourse, where instead of, thinking truth is best understood as like scientific, empirical adequacy, get your data fixed and then you're true. Westphal says that no, in existential ways, truth plays out as a kind of prophetic witness towards what it would mean to take seriously truth, goodness, and beauty as modes of human existence. And so that can, of course, be cashed out in explicitly Christian ways, but it also can be cashed out in these sort of broader philosophical ways. And for me, music is the best mode of coming to grips with the fact that we are these very strange beings who feel before we think. And where we are affective, AFFECT, affective before we are cognitive. And this is sort of what Maya Angelou meant when she says that people will forget what you say, they'll forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And one of the things that I find unbelievably profound about musical expression is it can make people feel in ways that, to be honest, like no lecture about philosophy from me ever will for them. Like there's no book I can write that will have the same affective potency as, a chord or a beat or the bass dropping at a particular moment or taking that key change. Like there's something about music that's just different. And that's where, for me, like when I say the way I try to approach philosophy is as a musician, it's in a lecture, like you've got those moments and those movements and where's that bridge and how are you going to get people back in and are they rocking coming into the final chorus? Well, good lectures, good speaking, good thinking should have that same kind of invitational, power, right? Now, I'm not saying that my work does that. I think if I have a drum set behind me, it's a whole lot easier to pull off. And I have not yet been able to convince any of my friends to bring their Hammond, B3 and like play behind me as I'm talking about Kierkegaard and Nietzsche and stuff. So that sounds like a on my to-do list. So when you started writing, you said that there's this kind of flow state mode of expression. One of the things I find really cool about a lot of your work, and I've been digging into your discography, of course, as we've gotten to know each other, and I've written several on my Substack, several posts about your work recently. Your account seems to have kind of different interpretive layers that are possible. And I don't know if this was intentional. And at some level, it doesn't matter to me if it was, right? It's sometimes books can yield interpretive options that the author couldn't have even foreseen. I mean, I've been stunned in some of my own work. I'll go give a talk and have somebody come up and say, this or that book was so meaningful to me. And then they'll like tell me why. And it's the first time I've ever thought that what I had said could be read the way that they suggested, right? But a lot of your work has, like, for example, the single you released last year, I'm going to mess up the title, but basically you're not alone, right? This idea that you're not going through stuff on your own. And the explicit level, the kind of like, what I take your intention to be is that God walks with you in the midst of these dark nights, right? But you can also listen to this and understand it to be an almost relational anthem for the idea of neighbor love. Even if one's not religious, you don't go through this alone. There's always people with you. There's always a community that's got your back. And there's something about that that I think is so cool because it allows for, you might say, a kind of secular embrace of what you meant as a sacred claim. The same is true on your new song, I Still Have My Faith, which if you have not checked this out, folks, you've got to check it out. Just dropped last week, if I'm not mistaken. And it's about your experience with a cancer diagnosis, which we'll talk about in a minute. But this song too, I Still Have My Faith, it starts off, strip it all away, take everything from me, this kind of Job model, right? But yet that's something that I think every human, especially in capitalistic societies, who are you if you stripped away all the trappings that we attribute to your dignity, to your significance, to your social identity, right? Strip it all away. Do you still have your faith? Which again can mean a explicit, determinate Christian commitment to the way of Christ, but it also can mean whatever that directional risk that defines who you are outside of your money and your job and your status and your power. Like, who are you when all of that is erased? And are you okay with yourself, right? So part of what I just want to sort of compliment you on, but also hear your thoughts about, is the fact that explicitly religious words and framing doesn't have to be taken up as religious by those who listen. There's ways that this can inspire wherever people find themselves. And I think that that's something that is true about the best Christian artists, right? This is what made Rich Mullins and Amy Grant and even bands I grew up with, the Petras of the world and stuff. Like, there was always a deeper possible interpretive level that was different than what I think too often we see in the kind of contemporary worship music CCM of today, where their audience is so narrow and so explicitly already part of the choir that singing to the choir is literally the market strategy. And yet your work has this kind of existential openness that might ironically make it a harder sell to some of those audiences that need it to be so narrow and so self-protective that it misses some of that prophetic layering. So I don't know if any of that resonates, but I'd love to hear your thoughts because that's what I like about your music. And I may be entirely off base, but for me, there's something powerful about that side to it.
Man, you tapped in on like 3 elements. I'll see if I can like stick with one and just hit on it. You talked about, I guess, to put in basic words for people who aren't philosophers here watching. You talked about essentially a song having an alternate meaning that I might not have realized that could be gotten out of that song when someone hears it. And I agree. I think that's what makes the best songs, because whenever I'll hear a song come up on Spotify, if I'm just like listening to something, or I'm in a friend's car and they're bumping something, and I'm like, what is this? Like, what does this mean to me? And like, you're in a state in life, like you are looking through some kind of lens with your life, like everything that's affected you, right? Like you grew up as a drummer, or you know how to play drums. I grew up as a drummer, right? Like, so there's like there's ways we understand the world. And when I hear a certain song, maybe it's like a breakup song, right? It's like a love song. Like, dude, I was like one of the most like, there's a word, I don't know if angsty is the right word. I was like one of the most,
a good word.
like inner emo kids, like in high school, where like breakup songs, love songs, like I loved all that kind of stuff, especially if it was like heavier, like maybe not like super heavy like metal, but like punk rock type of stuff, pop punk. And
well, and if my friend Dan Koch happens to be listening here, a plug to his band Sherwood, which was, I think, one of the best kind of emo with deeper theological awareness bands kind of from the scene in the mid 2000s. But he and I've talked about this, that like the power music has in those moments of genuine emotive outpouring. And though I'm not a huge emo fan, I actually love that there was a whole genre that said, we're kind of punk kids, but want to say something about our feelings and life is hard. And bands like Sherwood, I think really did a good job of that. So I completely vibe with your point.
Sweet. Yeah, I'll have to check them out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think just any genre in general, but just when I would listen to a song and it would come up, right, I'm just thinking, what does this mean to me? Like, because I'm hearing this song through the emotions that I'm experiencing today, or the emotions that I'm experiencing this month, right? Like, maybe someone just went through a breakup, and it's like this song means to them, like fighting for the love of their life, getting that person back, or maybe it means like, how do I find the value in myself after I just got treated like crap, or like physically, mentally, emotionally abused in this relationship, whatever, right? It's like, what does this song mean to me? And man, yeah, with Christian music, yeah, you're talking about preaching to the choir, right? Like, you're talking about most artists now they're in the choir, they're singing to essentially their customer base lives in the choir, right? Everyone who's now buying the songs that are, I won't name names, but everyone that's buying the songs that are like on major Christian radio and everywhere else, right? Those people are a lot of the worship leaders at other churches. I just think about, man, it's a great business to sell music that just copies and pastes. That's not even a word. Copies and pastes what's in the Bible, right? It's like you could just grab, a couple verses that you love, and then stick it to a generic singable melody, and then sell it to those people in the choir. And that's the complete opposite of what I want to do. Like, I believe God made us with originality, and I think we all have a beautiful story to tell. I mean, that's part of the lyrics in my song is, this is my story to tell. And I think one of the most important lessons I've learned after getting cancer is that if you believe in Satan, if you don't, there's a reality that some force going on in the universe just does not want you to like speak your truth, to speak the truth, right? To be who you are, to share your testimony. And as a Christian, I believe Satan does not want people to believe that they are worthwhile, that they have value, that you hold value, that your story and your testimony, even if it's not fully unraveled, God is always unraveling your story every day. But you just have so much value. And when you share like the way that God has impacted your life, we'll call that our testimony as Christians. When you share that with someone who is in a state of hopelessness and disbelief that life is worth it, man, it's like, that's what makes life worth it, in my opinion, is like seeing the change that you can be for other people that need it. I forget what I said. Sometimes I'll write something on Facebook and I'm like, oh, that was a cool quote, I should save that. But I wrote something like, everybody basically everybody needs someone to be there for them. And like that's the missing puzzle piece in the universe, is like everyone like wants to be heard, everyone wants to be loved and understood, and yet like so few people are actually like doing it for other people. But like when you actually show compassion and care for someone, you radically change. Like you're talking about how did you say it earlier, like almost prophets have to step outside that which the world knows, or that which they know, to receive that which is not known. I don't know, I'm translating.
No, I love it.
Differently,
Thanks, is great. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. There's a philosopher named Jean-Luc Marion. He's a Catholic philosopher, actually, who suggests that part of what Christians in particular, but he would say, part of what the philosophical community, when it talks about the divine or talks about religion or God or these concepts that get undertaken, historically by both philosophers, theologians, historians, etc. He says part of the problem is we've started by thinking that the most important thing about God, for example, is divine existence. And so then we have all these debates, is there a God? And what proof do you have that there's a God? And Marion's like, look, it's not that that's unimportant, but that's the least interesting thing. And he says that the most interesting thing, which he says is actually a theological determinant. And I'm not sure that he's right about that. This is a long, complicated, very technical debate. But he says it's theologically important that the first move within, in his case, a Catholic Christian conception of the world is not that God exists and therefore some things follow. It's we are loved and therefore things follow. Right? So if we flip that script from a matter of what is the case about existence and start with what is the case about where I find myself. And so I don't find myself alone, even though that might be an experience that is difficult. I start with the idea of already being loved. And imagine, right? That's a powerful theological, I think, inversion of this idea that God is first and foremost understood as powerful, as necessarily existing. And you instead say, no, what would it mean to understand the power of the divine as a maximal invitation to you are loved regardless of precondition, right? And that move then becomes, I see, as a robust philosophical idea that then we say, well, shoot, what would it look like to conceive, as you put it, everybody needs somebody, to think about our relationship to our community, to our neighbors, to our, people sharing the same society, sharing the same globe with us. What would it mean to say, you are loved is the hallmark of our fundamental relationship? And part of what's tricky about, America, where you and I both find ourselves, is we really like the idea of freedom. And there's lots to be said about freedom. I'm a fan. But notice freedom tends to be cashed out as I can wall myself off from, right? I am protected against. Think about how different a world it could be if we started by saying, no, I'm obligated to. I am implicated by and with. And this, in fact, a Jewish philosopher named Emmanuel Levinas suggests that that's the fundamental hallmark of human existence, is that we are confronted by and challenged by the face of every single other person as neighbor, right? So what you're describing as this idea of, look, I'm writing music as a kind of invitation that people can recognize they're not alone, they're not isolated, they're not insignificant, they matter, right? That they are loved. That can be a deep theological claim, which I also, as a theist, affirm, but it also can be a social claim that would be unbelievably transformative to our social and political ways of making sense of community, right? And maybe that's, too much to ask of a song, but I don't think it's too much to ask of people who shape where they live, where they find themselves, what's possible in their world. And this is something that I think, unfortunately, too many Christians tend to give into, is this idea of the real world is this stable, necessary thing against which we either struggle or into which we find, throw ourselves. What if we started thinking about the world as this horizon of possibility? So instead of saying that's just the real world, we said, well, what world are you wanting to make real? Like, what would that then make possible for the people in the world with whom you share it, if you saw them as loved both by God and also as objects of love for you, right? That's a different way forward. And I think in your case, now let's turn to your recent year, which has been a hard one. You get diagnosed with cancer, and I'll let you tell some of that story. But I tend to think I've several of my siblings. My sister had cancer as a kid. My brother was diagnosed with juvenile diabetes when he was young. It seems to me that physical illness, in a way that is sometimes too much for us to be able to make sense of, is one of the things that makes us feel so deeply isolated and alone, because definitionally, no one else can take that pain, that risk, that suffering away from us. They can walk with us in the midst of, but as the philosopher Heidegger points out, no one can die your death for you, right? And so when you're given a diagnosis that you confront your own mortality, your own finitude, your own vulnerability and embodied limits, like, no matter how strong your parents or your friends or your girlfriend or wife or husband or whatever it is, there's a kind of radical impotence in relationship to someone who is also navigating that vulnerability, right? Not only do we feel alone as lovers, as supporters, because we can't fix it, but then the people navigating it feel alone because what they have to face is not something others can fix. So maybe tell a little bit about your story this year, which leads us to then this new single, I Still Have My Faith, because the still, like, that word is doing a lot of work in this song.
I like
a lot
that.
of work. And I want to let the audience hear a little bit about the work that word does for you in this song.
Yeah, I just want to touch on something. I'll go right into my story. But it's kind of, I think you're talking about the work that word does.
Yeah.
And I think about the constant question we're all asking all the time is, why am I here? What's my purpose? What's the meaning to life? Whether we know it or not, that's always going on in the back of your head. Like, it's like your survival instinct. Like what's next? What's next? Why am I here? What should I do? And I just think about the power of stories. Like, there's a reason that archetypes and stories and like superheroes, there's a reason they're so popular. There's a reason that kind of archetype is passed down. And when we're talking about heroes, like, I believe firmly, like, you don't have to believe this, but I just believe that if you want to have a fulfilled, meaningful life, like, you have to be the hero of your own story.
Interesting.
And that actually wrestles with the Christian belief that Jesus is the hero of all of our stories. And so you kind of have to meet this bridge in the middle of those as a Christian, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're the true hero all the time with everything, then why need Jesus? And so, but there are things, it's like the boat, like, you're drowning and you're like, God, give me a miracle, right? And he sends you a boat and you don't take it. God, give me a miracle, save me. He sends you a boat. You don't take it. God, give me a miracle. There's a helicopter. You don't take it. And then you drown, you go to heaven. And then you're like, God, why didn't you send me a miracle? He's like, I sent you 2 boats and a helicopter, bro.
Right.
And, getting sidetracked here. But when it comes to
it's powerful,
the hero of your own story, I just want to take a look at like a hero in a movie I love so much, which is Avengers Infinity War.
Nice.
And you look at a hero like Thor.
Yeah.
He's been broken. He just lost his entire planet. Like, he was kind of like the king or prince of this planet, right? He's like he lost his brother, was just choked out by this evil purple monster called Thanos. He's lost his whole family, right? Everyone he knows has died. He's lost everything. And there's a line in there, and I forget the exact context leading up to it, but he's talking to the Guardians of the Galaxy when they pick him up on their ship. And he's talking about why he's going to take Thanos down no matter what. And they're like, dude, he's going to kill you. He's too powerful. You're crazy. And he goes, yeah, well, what more could I lose?
Yeah.
And it's just like, as the viewer, you're like, this is a Thor I've never seen before. Like, this is a hero I haven't experienced yet. That's a evolution process that just happened in his spirit. And I think that's when we're pushed to a breaking point of losing everything. When we hit our Job story, we face the scrutiny and the disbelief of everyone around us. Like in the story of Job, his wife is just assuming that he must have sinned so bad that
Yeah.
God was just punishing him and he deserves this. And she
Mhm.
goes, "Why don't you just curse God and die?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, what kind of loving wife would say that to the person that they love and are spending their life with? And
Mhm.
the truth behind that story, the meta ever living truth, is that everyone is capable of saying that to the person they love most,
Yeah.
given the worst circumstances. We're all capable of that. And so weirdly enough, I wrote this song before I even knew that cancer was like a thing that would impact my life.
Oh wow.
That's where I'm talking about like the prophetic,
Yeah.
because
Goodness.
I was in a really frustrating time, kind of just wrestling with the music industry as a whole. I felt like it was me against the world kind of
Yeah.
all last year. And then you put cancer on top of that. But I was signed with a booking agency, and going into signing with them, they asked me essentially like, what qualifies you as someone we should sign? Why are you good enough for us?
Mm.
And I had said to them, well, my Christmas song, I Heard the Bells, hit
Mhm.
number 2 on the radio, which is pretty
Yep.
awesome. I mean, I'm an independent artist. I never
Yeah.
expected that song to blow up as big as it did. Like I was putting all my chips on the table, asking a radio promoter to do what he could with it. But he was like, man, I want you to know people will pay me thousands of dollars and get
Mhm.
nowhere. No one will ever
Yeah.
play them. And he's like, I don't want you to pay me. He's like, I want you to walk away
Mm.
and never work with me. I want to scare you away because everyone thinks they're going to be a rock star and 99% art or whatever. And
Mhm.
I was like, okay. I was like, with this project, I was like, I want to risk it. It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
And I put everything onto that song. I spent so much money. I spent so much effort and time and passion. And so that meant a lot to me. And when this book
Yeah,
came,
and that song popped. If for anybody who hasn't heard it, I heard the bells on Christmas morning. You can find it on YouTube. But also, if you go to my Substack, I wrote about it 2 or 3 weeks ago and looked through the Longfellow poem that it's drawn from. Did some comparisons between the way Christian articulates this and puts it to music and what Longfellow was going through. And it turns out that Longfellow writes the song "I Heard the Bells," having basically lost everything. So he also is in this kind of Job scenario, and he hears these bells and writes this song as basically a way of saying hope is greater than what we take to be greater than us. Like when we feel like we don't have any left, there is still beauty. There is still something worthwhile, and that poem and then the song that you produce sort of using these lyrics, it's just super 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 powerful. I recommend it to everybody. So YouTube, it's got I Heard the Bells, Chris Anderson Band. And also if you want to see a kind of philosophical analysis, go over to my Substack Philosophy in the Wild, where I talk about it a few weeks ago. So yeah, I love that you did that. I love the video that you did with it. And you're coming out of this. I had a number 2 song. I'm an independent artist. You're talking to this booking agent, and yet they're saying, hey, are you big enough for us? Are you an important enough person? How did you internalize that? Right. Because I would imagine there's a temptation to ego. I've got a number 2 song. How
yeah,
do you know? How do you not know me? And yet here they are saying, who are you again? So how did you navigate that tension, that conflict?
man, it humbles you. It brings you down to reality after you get a trophy in life.
Yeah.
And someone, I really believe you could be the most famous person in the world, receive every trophy and every reward here on earth, every award, right, or whatever, and it's like people will still forget your name. Like
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't matter what you've achieved. Like there's always, and you learn this quickly as an artist, because all your friends, all your family are always like, they've got your back and they're like,
Mm-hmm.
I believe in you. I know you'll make it one day. One day you'll make it. And in my mind, I'm like, what is making it? Especially
Yeah.
as a Christian artist, because
Yeah.
if there's a difference between a Christian artist and an artist, I want to know what that is. And that's when
Mm-hmm.
it clicked with me, when he's like, why are you valuable? That's what they were
Yeah.
asking me. Why do you
Yeah.
matter? Why are you valuable? Like,
Yep.
how can we sell you? And I was like, well, am I just a piece of meat? Am I just a product?
Yeah.
Is that all? Like, is that just what this world and this business runs on? And I mean, it kind of does. And so I was just like, I felt a thick, dark cloud. I don't know if I've ever
Mm.
experienced like a spirit or like
Mm.
seeing a spirit or anything, but this is probably the closest thing to that I've ever felt. It felt like a thick, dark cloud. If there was like a
Mm.
demonic spirit of greed or materialism,
Mhm.
it just
Which I might just say, uh, the reality of, and this is a technical term, what Aaron James refers to as asshole capitalism, where capitalism is no longer about raising all boats while the tide lifts, but about allowing some to excel and others to be forgotten. That is a wonderful name for what the demonic might be, right? So whether you take this in a spiritual sense or you take it in a secular sense, this idea of saying, no, this is the antithesis of whatever God would mean. The idea that
yeah.
some triumph at the expense of the suffering of others.
Mm.
And we do this calculatedly. We do this on a profit loss statement, right? That is something that I think should give us all pause, whatever our religious commitments or lack thereof. So I'm with you on that particular characterization of what greed looks like. Absolutely.
I think just anyone watching this, yeah, that's a universal thing.
Mm-hmm.
What people are willing to achieve at the expense of others. And
Yeah.
I really think about that. And I've had to just be so careful about everything I do now in my life, especially getting cancer. I'm like, what
Mm.
matters in life? What do I really want to speak? What do I want to say? And balancing, being serious with humor
Yeah.
and, posting. And like, as an artist now, you either have to have a lot of money, you have to have a label, right, just backing you with everything, which is kind of money, and they're
Yep.
helping post
Absolutely.
and put videos together. Basically, social media, like if you're king on social media,
Mm-hmm.
like you're king. So as an
You'll be good.
artist, if you're crushing it, right, it's like if you're crushing it on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, you're
Yep.
crushing it just as an artist as a whole.
Yep.
And
Whether or not your music's any good, we should make
exactly.
clear. And you and I, you were talking a few weeks ago. I experienced this like as an author, where my last book, which did really well for a philosophy book, got turned down by nearly 40 presses because they kept telling me, hey, we love your book, we love your writing, we think this is so powerful, but you don't have a big enough following for us to sign you with our publishing house. And so I ended up basically like you. I went DIY, went with a boutique press, and I've been selling books out of the trunk of the car, kind of a thing, right? And the reality is, it's not. We are no longer in a society where Aristotelian excellence sets you apart as worth taking seriously. It's no longer people who model virtue, model excellence, model a love for truth are the ones then celebrated. It's those who've been willing to acquiesce to a lowest common denominator, what Nietzsche calls the herd, what Kierkegaard calls the public. These moves, like my brother keeps telling me, he's like, Aaron, if you want your YouTube channel to blow up, like throw a cat off a roof. Half the country will be furious at you. The other half will think it's hilarious. Either way, you've now got the following for your next book. Like the reality that that's where we find ourselves is, I would suggest, inhuman, because it requires us no longer to see each other as those loved neighbors, but to see each other as basically possible consumers
Mhm.
of a particular product, rather than my selfhood being something I'm okay with. It's how can I shape myself so that they like it and will pay for it.
Mhm.
And boy, that's not exactly what Plato understood as the highest possibility for human existence. It would be what he described as the tyranny of appetite. When we become what suits their appetites rather than becoming what calls them to their reason. And man, we're in a mess
Yeah.
socially when that's what happens, right?
That's the ultimate question. When you or any kind of business owner now, creator, artist, anything, everyone, it almost, you have to have a social media presence as some kind of content creator if
Yeah.
you're any kind of business owner. And it's crazy to me. I was just thinking about that because back in the day, it was like mostly just entertainment and celebrities were kind of like the big, content creation. And now it's everybody, like real estate people, lawyers, like the stuff that I would deem boring as an artist. Like these people are creating entertaining content now. And so there's kind of a competition for attention.
Yeah.
And if attention is the highest rated trophy that we're seeking to achieve, what are we willing to do to get it?
Yeah.
And once we've done those things, who have we become? And I think that's just the translation of everything you just said.
That's exactly right. What does it make us?
And I've that's just been the whole thing. So this last year, right, when this booking agency goes like, why should we sign you? And I'm like, I had a number 2 song on the radio, and they go, okay, well, that's cool and all, but I mean, like, what's your plan for your next number 1? And I was like, do you mean like what's my business plan, or do you mean like what's my heart for the next song I'm writing? Like, what song am I excited about, and like why do I believe there's so much power behind it, and it's going to touch people's hearts and draw them closer to Christ and give them inspiration and change their lives? Like, which of those are you asking? Like, what's your plan for your next number 1? And I think it was, what's your business plan?
Yep.
And I was like, well, my business plan is just to continue doing what I've been doing and add on any more great strategies, but as far as creating music, I think social media is the complete opposite of what the heart is behind anyone who got into music in the first place. Because now the goal is, how much attention can I get? Hey, I'll throw a cat off the roof as long as it creates, creates something controversial.
Yep.
The question on social media is now, how much controversy can I create in order to get attention? Because the only things that really are gonna guarantee you a nice viral hit is something that's controversial. And this is like, I'm a little ashamed to admit it. I'm kind of somewhat, but like, there was something that frustrated me about the way other artists would post. I love them as human beings. I love them as artists. Some of their music, like I might not like, but like I think they're amazing people. I think just the way some Christian artists now like are posting to gain as much attention as possible just feels inauthentic, and I don't know how to explain that. And I've been in that boat, and I don't like how it makes me feel, and I don't like how it makes me communicate to people and share myself with people. And so,
I would guess that your cancer diagnosis, like as you say in your I Still Have Faith song, it stripped away all of those trappings, right? Like when you're confronted with your own, short, fragile human coil, like the idea of, well, what can I do to get more likes becomes far secondary to whatever happens to me. What legacy have I left, or what life have I lived? Yeah.
Right. And so you kind of stop, when something like that happens to you, you stop caring so much about the likes. Now, I'll admit, like, now that I'm mostly back to my health, I mean, knocking on wood, like I have an appointment tomorrow to talk about test results. But now that I'm feeling back to health and everything, it's that temptation is there to like care, like, because I'm promoting a song. Once again, this is the first song I'm promoting in months, and I'm like, I want it to do so well. I want this to change people's lives. I want it to change their perspectives. Like, I want people dying of cancer to like know that they have hope. And there's all these huge like expectations I put on this song. But yeah, when you go through something like cancer, how many likes am I going to get? How much attention am I going to get? Is so secondary to everything else, because you're like, I care about the time I'm spending with my family, with my loved ones, the legacy I'm leaving behind. And so like just kind of the road that I've been on that went from, like I felt like I was at the top of the world. I had a song in a movie, like a Hollywood film, and I was walking the red carpet, and it was crazy because like the day, like a day or two before I'm getting ready to take off to Hollywood, I get the call that says you have cancer.
Wow.
And so I'm in Hollywood keeping this private and secret with only me and like my very close direct family, no one else. And I'm just like, I'm in Hollywood, I'm talking to people, I'm walking the red carpet, and I just like, I was like feeling such a cool and scary like sense of gratitude, like wow, like I'm like, if this was my life, I made it. Like this is the dream here. Like, like everyone dreams of the glamorous, like the fame and being on like a red carpet and whatever. And I was just like, man, like this isn't all it's cracked up to be. Like this is so fun, but like I was just like, man, I did it. Now what?
Yeah.
I achieved it. And I just like, after I had that sense of a little more like fulfillment inside, I still am working with this booking agency. Months are going by. They haven't booked a single show for me. I'm like, what's going on? And they had just said, we're struggling. Like, can you like do something more, like release more music that's like gonna hit number ones, or like just change your social presence, do something.
Yeah.
And so kind of all this expectation was on me for the job that they were doing. And I'm just like, I don't know if anyone here's to blame, but I'm like, it's your job to book. So there's this frustration going on. And I was writing this song during that time. I had written the majority. I wrote the chorus and all of verse 1. I wrote all of that, maybe even a little bit of the bridge, but I wrote that line actually talking about my life with this real struggle of like, dude, if I ever make it, I am kind of the rags to riches. Like, I'm a nobody. Like, my family doesn't come from money. I have a family that supports me. They're awesome. I have 2 parents that have supported me through this. But if you want to know how much my dad makes a year, I mean, he's the only one working. My mom's a stay-at-home wife, and he's a priest. So, you've got just knowing that, like, I don't come from like wealth. I don't come from fame. Like, so, So anyways, it's just like everybody kind of in the music industry who has made it, when you take a closer look, it's like, oh, they actually had, especially in the Christian music industry, there's a term called nepotism. I didn't know what it meant until a couple months ago. Look it up. But for those of you who don't know what it means, like me, it means like, maybe like a family member, right? It's like your dad was famous, and he was a famous Christian.
They already had a way in.
Yep,
they already had an access point.
Connection. Now I do have like some connections, but like not even remote. Like my manager right now, he knows a lot of people, but that's just because he's like a talker. Like he just talks to people, but like I don't have that in, and so like I'm trying to bust my butt making it in the industry. I'm feeling like broke. I'm feeling frustrated. I poured everything into my Christmas song. It took off. That was awesome. But everyone kept saying, what's next? What's next? What's next? And that's always the burning question for people.
And then cancer, of course, knocks out the next, right? Because then you can't be sure that there is a next, right? It's that prescience of our own temporality, our own, vulnerable embodiment.
Yeah. And with the what's next question, I got really scared even before cancer, because I was just staring at a massive pile of debt, right? And it's like, I can't even release another song and promote another song until I pay this off. And I was just like, I was trying to figure out, like, man, like, God, what do you want from me? You called me into this. At least that's my understanding of everything. And I'm like, where do you want me now? Like, what's happening? And I felt a little like Job, where it was like, I felt so crushed, where it was like the closest people to me in the industry who should be my, like, in my corner. If I was a boxer, like, these should be the guys in my corner saying like, dude, we're like promoting you to everybody. We're so pumped. We love your music. Never got that from them. Never got like, we're obsessed with your music. We love it. We support you. And so like, I just feel this tension kind of between me and the industry, and it starts to feel like me versus the industry. And I'm like, what's going on? And so I start to write this song, and I'm thinking about I was thinking about, okay, if you took everything away from me, like if you took away all my achievements, if you took away like all my money, right? If I'm just like broke right now, I can't even like promote another song, release another song. I was like, you know what? Like it was like this fiery rebellion in me, and I was like something ignited, and it was like, take it all away from me. I was like, what do you have? And it's like that scene in Avengers where Captain America goes like, man in a suit of armor, like, take it away. What are you? He's like billionaire, playboy, philanthropist. Like, he's got it all lined up. He knows who he is. And to that degree, it's like, do I know who I am? I was like, take it all away. And I was like, you know what? I was like, this whole industry is built on business, and it's built on money, and it's built on material, whether it's Christian or not. It's just that's the way the music industry works. And I was like, you know what? Take away everything, but you can't take away my faith. That's the one thing you can't take. I was like, that's intangible. You can't touch that. And I was like, it's just such a cool concept. And you're talking about the word still. Strip it all away, and I still have my faith. And that's pretty cool. Just talking about how that's doing the heavy lifting. So like, tell me, like, what does that mean to you?
No, I love it. I mean, so the idea in my Pentecostal traditions, we used to have a line. I actually think there's an old song that says this, you know, I wouldn't take nothing for my journey right now. And the idea is when others understand the walk that we have trod, right? The path that we've navigated, all of us have had difficult times, have, walked through grief, through loss, through suffering, through torment. The valley of the shadow of death is not a single thing. It's a bunch of stuff. And all of us, I think, navigate what that means, but we do it, I think, so often as just problems to be solved. And what's so profound about our existential identity as mortal beings, as finite beings, is that the valley of the shadow of death is basically literal, right? Like, we are beings who will die. We are beings who will age, who eventually will not be able to do what we prized ourselves and defined ourselves as being able to do. One of my, you mentioned growing up having kind of the, older person who played the drums, who kind of modeled what that looked like. For me, that guy was a guy named Benji Sturgill, who was also a singer-songwriter, had some success there in Nashville. But Ben was a couple years older than me and was the drummer in the church. And so I, was learning to play drums, was getting good, and was kind of chomping at his heels. Why can't I play on Sunday? And Ben was always just strolling in, and he was a little bit better and a little cooler. But then eventually I moved into that role. Ben went off, to college and did other things. Again, became a impressive musician, singer-songwriter. But then 3 years ago, 2022, got diagnosed with ALS, and he's only a couple years older than me. He passed away basically last week, a couple weeks ago, and leaves a small son behind. And the idea, though, of walking through the valley of the shadow of death as a reality that all of us on a long enough time horizon are not here, right? So what will your having been here mean? And in some of my work, I define that as this fundamental question: what's worthy of your finitude? What's worthy of the life you will live? And it's important to understand that, you walked through cancer, but I love that I still have my faith. It's not, oh, that's the thing. That's part of the thing. You have the great line in there, cancer can go to hell, which I talk about in my Substack post this morning, and brought you into conversation with Stripers to Hell with the Devil. And I complained about the fact that Christians too often are more worried about, saying a word that they find, problematic or abrasive but then aren't somehow worried about the injustice that defines their communities. As Tony Campolo, the Christian writer, once said, a friend of mine, John Sanders, was telling me this today after reading my post this morning. He said that he once heard Tony Campolo give a talk at Wheaton College where he got up and was, talking about the fact that 30,000 kids were dying a day of preventable disease, of starvation, of these kinds of things. And then he says, and it turns out that, the audience listening doesn't give a shit. And he said, and now watch, all of y'all are way more concerned about the word I just used than you are those 30,000 lives that are lost today. Right? That potency of recognizing the hypocrisy of moral self-righteousness that is so deep in the churches.
Yeah.
That's something that I actually love. Your song kind of walks some of that line, right? And in fact, we had a comment come in. I can't put it in the live stream because YouTube will dock me and take it down. But we have somebody basically say, look, you guys are talking about God. There is no God. What God? And for what it's worth, despite my being a theist, I'm deeply sympathetic to that critique because I think the greatest argument for atheism is looking at the vast majority of Christians who are okay with the suffering of their neighbors, so long as it doesn't impact their bottom line. As long as, I have a buddy, he writes under and is an artist under the name The Naked Pastor. But he recently just did this amazing kind of just one scene drawing where it's got Jesus on the cross and this person, basically knight who walks up, centurion, has a big sign that says, but the Dow's over 50,000. Right. And the idea being, hey, we'll get back to worrying about the idea of loving our enemies and standing for justice and, loving mercy and walking humbly. But right now, stop it. Don't get in the way of our capitalist successes. Right. And so I to the listener who's listening and saying, hey, y'all's discussion of God that turns me up. I get it. Because too many people use God to justify their own individualistic success stories. And then they deploy God to basically be a theological overlay or authoritative stamp on what many others see as casual cruelty, unkindness, disregard for the humanity of our fellow citizens, right? And even those who are not citizens. I mean, my goodness, heard a sermon yesterday in my church where the pastor just talked about the role of the foreigner and the obligation to love the foreigner and to do justice to the foreigner. And then she was saying, look, that's not what we're seeing right now from an awful lot of our Christian brothers and sisters who are denying the humanity of immigrants, right? So this is complicated stuff. And so I get why somebody would say, I don't want to hear about God. Y'all can't even love your neighbor. Right. But at the same time, we also had a comment come in that I'd love to have your response to that basically just says, so is there a scripture that spoke to you fighting cancer in the depths of despair that allowed you to kind of say, there's a hope here, there's a risk here that I will continue to live into, though I die? This is where I will stand. This is where I will, as the Hebrew Bible says, this is where I will erect my Ebenezer or my, stone marker testifying to the goodness of God, despite the evil that I navigate. And unfortunately, that too many, even within my own religious community, perpetuate. So how would you respond to this viewer that says, what scripture kind of stood out to you? Or even if it's not a scripture, what stood out? What encouraged you in the midst of this?
It kind of became my motto. I don't know, my mantra, whatever you would call it. The weirdest thing happened where I read the daily the verse of the day on like the Bible app with my girlfriend. Didn't think much of it. Then like a day or two later, she goes like, hey, this friend at work just wanted me to share this with you.
Mm.
She might have told him that I was like going through cancer or something.
Yeah.
And just so out of the blue, like he like handed her. I don't know. It's kind of a weird situation though, because like he didn't know anything about me. So like
Mm.
he handed her this little prayer card, and I have to double check, but I think it was like Zephaniah 3:17. But the verse, I just recite it every day. Let's see if I can even remember it. I haven't listened to this much, but it was like, um, the Lord your God is with you. It was like he will quiet you with his love. You know, it ends with he will rejoice over you with singing. But it was just kind of this like,
Interesting.
it almost reminded me of like a psalm or something. But
Yeah. Yeah.
the way that it ended like that, it starts with like, the Lord your God is with you, kind of just like this, don't be afraid.
You're not alone.
Yeah. And every statement in order, let me just look it up, but every statement in the order of that verse was like, I'm a very timeline and visual person. Like, I sometimes, like, this is maybe my ego talking, but like sometimes I wonder if like God made me like a mini prophet, because I feel like I view things like what will happen and how it will happen and when it will happen, and I think about my life in these structured ways.
Yeah.
And so when I was reading this verse, like I was like prophesying, believing, envisioning like the end of it. He will rejoice over you with singing. And the biggest fear of my life wasn't dying. It was them cutting into my thyroid and slicing off my vocal cords and never being able to speak again. And more important than speaking, never being able to sing, which is like my beloved dream, my passion. And so that was the biggest fear, was having a life I hated rather than dying with a life well lived. And let's look up Zephaniah 3:7.
Powerful.
I think that's the verse.
Wow.
So the Lord your God is with you. This is a totally different translation, but we'll go. The Lord your God is with you. The mighty warrior who saves. My translation said something else there. He will take great delight in you. That's the one I was. He will take great delight in you. He will quiet you with his love. He will rejoice over you with singing. So that just kind of became like my daily prayer. Every time I felt afraid, I would say that to myself over and over and over. But it's just crazy with this song, because like I said, I wrote the chorus, strip it all away, and I still have my faith. It would take me too much time, but it would be so cool, honestly, if I like scrolled through my voice memos and I found the first ever one, like where I recorded that, just like, because sometimes I'll be like walking around, strutting around my room like in circles, and I'll be like, and then I put it to words, but it was crazy because I wrote that in January last year, and then on February 11th, I was diagnosed and I get this call. And I didn't have the whole song written, but like the structure of the song was there. Like I was ready to go with it. I think I might have even had like it could have been releasable if I just went and recorded it the next day, but it would have had a totally different meaning, because it wasn't about cancer. It was about, this is my story. I've lost everything, like my pride, my money, like everything, especially dealing with everything that happened with this agency and everything. Absolutely. So it became a totally like more expansive song with a more expansive meaning. And sometimes my manager will go, I'll be playing at a show and he'll be like, are you gonna play the cancer song? Like I'll be playing like I just did a Christmas show, and it was like the second show where I played this song live, like before it was released. He was like, are you going to play the cancer song? And I was like, I actually finally confronted him, and I said, I'd appreciate it if you didn't call it the cancer song. Because this song puts this in a box where people think this can only have meaning if they're fighting cancer. And this song should hold meaning for you as a listener, or at least I would hope that whatever you lose in life, it's
Yeah.
not a loss, because as long as you still have your faith, you have everything. Um, and so yeah, it's just crazy because I remember my girlfriend still has a video. I should post it. I think
Mm.
he has a video of me talking either about how excited I think how excited I was about that song, and I was
Yeah.
getting ready to like finish writing and releasing it. And literally like the next month I got diagnosed with cancer.
Wow.
And it's just crazy because I wrote this song before I even got cancer. And so when
Yeah.
I got cancer, I told her I can't release this. I
Yeah.
can't do it. I can't, like, I'm not strong enough.
Yeah.
I
Well,
like
and I love the idea that you're, in some sense, and I talk about this in my own writing, where I write to figure out what I think. And so I am my own first reader, as it were. And in this case, you'd written this song, your circumstances shift, and now the lyrics to your own song are the lyrics that you needed to hear in your own circumstance, right? In your situation, your song became a song to yourself, which is, profound. It's also difficult, right? Because Maya Angelou has this line where she says, part of the problem being a teacher, and I think this is true for any artist who's also in front of people, she says the problem with being a teacher is you have to live what you teach, because the inconsistency between your lived example and what you have proclaimed will be obvious to everyone in the audience. And so in your case, saying, hey, I can't let this go, I've got to wait, allowed it to be something where then in some sense you could, you might say, ensure that you could live up to what you had declared true, right? And it is amazing. We were getting, lots of comments, people saying, how awesome it is that you were able to, not lose faith in the midst of this. But again, I would just add to that. I don't think faith is something reserved only for religious people, and especially not just for Christians. Faith is anyone living on purpose in relationship to who they're okay having been.
Mm.
And I think when we have everything stripped away, far too many of us, whether religious or not, lose our faith because we then can't stand any longer as the person that we had tried to will ourselves to become. And it's easy, to risk yourself in a direction when you've got a really big angel investing network, supporting you when it goes, when it flops, right? It's a whole lot harder to risk yourself in a direction when, like Job, everyone has told you this was a mistake or this was a bad move. I mean, my goodness, the number of students that come to me with their parents saying things like, I'm not going to keep paying for college unless you major in these practical things because the point of college is this job. And they're sitting there saying, I want to do philosophy or classics or arts or music or, whatever it is. And their parents saying, no. Well, it's like, wow, but what if more of us started saying, hey, how do we create a society where we've got each other's backs so that we can pursue truth, goodness, and beauty, so that we can be faithful to what it is we wanted to leave when in fact our story is over, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're running out of time, but I want to make sure that we encourage people, when you listen to this song, I still have my faith. Understand that for, as Christian is just giving his testimony has said, right? And testimony, again, for non-religious people, testimony is just a way of saying, here is where I stand proclaiming what I hold to be true. And it can be hard to proclaim something as true when our experiences have made that truth fragile, right? And so your song, I still have my faith, strip it all away, this is still where I will stand. I hope all of us can say that, right? When we lose elections, can we still stand for the widow, the orphan, the stranger? When we lose the power of social status and financial security, are we able to stand with the marginal, the oppressed, the poor, and the downtrodden? Like, there's something about doing justice, loving mercy, and walking humbly that has been eradicated as a social virtue in a context of market-driven, social media influenced models of human existence. And so what I like about your music and this song in particular, everybody go check it out. Put comments on his YouTube as we've talked about it, right? It just because we might oppose some of this calculus doesn't mean that we aren't still subject to the algorithms that run it. So not only listen to the song, like it on YouTube, drop a comment. It helps it then reach other people. But I don't want them to leave thinking, oh, I triumphed over this. Look at me sitting here on top of the mountain.
Yeah.
This is, you're still, right? Having just released a single, like you still are in the circumstances that you were a year ago, trying to do your best to figure out what the next step looks like, how to keep moving forward. And thankfully, that doesn't mean facing thyroid surgery, right? You did that. But there will be other things, and there will be for all of us. So are you someone, wherever you are listening to us today, are you someone who can say, I'm okay with who it is that I have been? And if you are, then you can say, I still have my faith, right? When everything dropped away, I'm still okay. And that matters. That's powerful. So, Christian, thank you so much for letting your experiences translate into music that then encourage others to be able to move forward. And as a way of closing out, I have 3 questions I'm going to ask you.
Okay.
To go from the serious to the silly, maybe. 1, as a drummer, you get contacted by a record label and they say, hey, we're going to send you out on tour. We can afford any drummer in the game. Who is it that you pick as your drummer? You can get anyone. Who is the drummer? Even in this case, we'll make it alive or dead, right? This is a real expensive record label. They can pull people back alive. Alive or dead, who's the drummer you want rocking with you?
This is probably gonna let some people down because not a lot of people know him, but I'm gonna say Timmy Jones, and that is because he drummed with the band For King and Country when I became inspired to actually make Christian music. And I studied that man. I studied that band. Cool. I loved, there was something special about them where I felt like Nashville is kind of like the country center of the world. And it also kind of then became like the Christian center of the world because there's this overlap between, you know, kind of the country and the Christian and whatever. And that band felt like something different. It felt like these guys knew who they were. They weren't ashamed to be Australian weirdos in a land where people didn't understand them. They stood on who they were, and they embraced that. And Timmy Jones, I mean, he's not like related to the 2 lead singers, but his style I thought was so cool. You know,
that's cool.
This is like
I love it.
Nerd
I love it.
The way he plays. The way he plays like his hi-hat grooves, I don't know if you appreciate this as a drummer, but I was like, oh yeah, wow, that's cool. So it actually inspired a little bit of like, let's say the groove on like my song His Weapon Is Love. I was like watching drum live and I was like, wow, that's pretty awesome. So anyways,
I love it. I think it's super cool. We did have a comment come in that said, make sure though, when it comes to guitar, you grab Phil Keggy to join you, which I think makes tons of sense. So that would be fantastic as a backup singer. You know, I would say, hey, you know, Rich Mullins could come back and join. What a heck of a crew that would be, right? So, second question. And by the way, my answer to that, if I were ever to go on tour and had a drummer backing me up, I think it would be Jeff Porcaro from the band Toto, who passed away tragically too young. But his Rosanna Shuffle remains like the beat that if you can play that well, which of course is anchored in Bernard Purdy's Purdy Shuffle. But if you can play that and sit back in the pocket, like you're good to me. So that would be my answer. Second question. I ask this of all my students. We do a thing in all my classes called the playlist for the end of the world. So you've got exactly as much time left before the meteor hits the earth to play one song. What song do you play?
How much time?
As much as the length of whatever
the
song
length of the song. Okay.
So it can only be one. I had people saying things like, I mean, but what about like all the movements of Beethoven's Fifth? And I was like, okay, I guess you're buying yourself a little bit more time. But so one thing, what would that one song be? The song you turn to when it's all like, all right, this is it. It's been a good run.
You know, my answer to that would totally depend on how I'm feeling when that meteor's coming. Not gonna lie.
I think that's a good answer.
But if the meteor was coming right now, man. I think the song I would pick would be None, because I would take so long to pick it that
the meteor's already down. I get it.
Yeah. I'm trying to give you a serious thought here, though. You know what's crazy? This is gonna be the craziest answer ever. But just like favorite songs, why not, right? Like even if they don't fit the moment.
Heck yes.
You know, I'm trying to think about. Oh, perfect. Okay, so my two favorite songs growing up is like a kid, like 4 years old or whatever. Were Rockin' Robin, like the OG one by.
It's fantastic.
Who did the OG one? It was before Michael Jackson. But wow. Great Balls of Fire for sure. It'd be great because Meteor.
That's fantastic. That works great. I love it. I go back and forth on this, but the one that I often come back to, there's a song by. I'll give you two that I actually like a lot. One, a song by the Gaslight Anthem, an amazing band up near New Jersey, but they have a song called The 59 Sound. And the whole thing is basically about what song will you play when you die? Like what's going to be on the loudspeakers when your spirit leaves your body? And I kind of like the idea of a meta song talking about what song you would pick being the song that I pick. So that's one, 59 Sound by Gaslight Anthem. The other is actually a weird pick, but there's a band called The Dangerous Summer, which Dan Koch and I actually did a episode of his podcast, Pretty Good Vibrations, where we talk about The Dangerous Summer together and listen to their music. But they have a song called Virginia, and the chorus is just tell me that you're hanging on. And I like the idea that when it's all like, we're not getting out of this, but hey, you know, shout across the void, tell me you're hanging on. And I love the idea, almost in the Tennyson sense of strive, seek, find, but not to yield. Right. So this unyielding, Horton, here's a who, we are here. For me, Virginia does that from The Dangerous Summer, which I've always thought was a compelling end of the world song. All right. Third question, and we're going to wrap it up. If you were giving one piece of advice to a musician who's 15, 16, 17 years old, maybe 24 and switching careers and coming into this, they've just written stuff, maybe it's getting a little bit of traction. What is your one piece of advice to the person getting into the music industry and doing so still with that idealistic spark in their eye? What is it you would tell them other than what you've already said, right? Be careful about what booking agent you sign with. But like, what would be your, let's say, encouragement? So not just warning or advice of, hey, watch out, control your entourage. What encouragement would you give to that person wanting to become who they see you already being?
Believe you can do anything. Like, really believe that. When someone tells you you can't do something, when someone tells you that's crazy, when someone tells you that's impossible, when someone laughs at you, work even harder. Believe it even more that you can do that thing. Yeah. Because the truth is, what you accomplish comes from how consistent you are in believing who you are. And so what matters most is knowing who you are and from there doing, because the world has it in that if you can do enough, you can have enough, you can be enough, but it's the complete opposite. And nothing other than Christianity will tell you this. You are enough because God made you and designed you to be one with him. You are his, and you have heavenly inheritance when you accept that, when you embrace the love that he has for you that you were talking about at the beginning of that. What if it's a relationship? What if the answer to the universe is a relationship and it's the answer to love? And so when you know that you are enough, you believe that, then, you know, from there, it's like you realize you have enough. You have everything you need. It's like if you were the son of a rich man, you would have all the money you need to go out and create whatever business you want. And so because you have enough, you can do enough. And when you come with that abundance mindset, it will change everything.
I love it. I love it. I would say again, because I'm sure our audience is varied and diverse. I love that you are standing for the way that you understand your positioning and your Christianity to speak to others in ways that give them hope. Again, I am a Pentecostal Christian, identify as a theist. I would say for me, I don't think Christianity is the only thing that teaches us that. I think there's actually lots of wisdom traditions that offer us similar sorts of notions. And part of what I wish more Christians would show, which I think, again, your music actually invites us to realize, is that when we become truly humble about what it means to realize that we aren't God, which the ancient Greeks would just call reverence. We are reverent when we realize that we are not, in fact, God. This allows us to be truly hospitable to all of the others that can help us better understand what it looks like to live well, to live wisely, to live virtuously. And so humility and hospitality, I think, are these joint virtues that invite us to inhabit that world about which the prophets would speak, right? The world of justice, of truth, of beauty, of goodness, of kindness, and of flourishing, which is something right now, wherever we find ourselves politically, where we find ourselves religiously, where we find ourselves economically, the desire for less fear, more flourishing, for less anger and animosity, and for more freedom to rest easily in who it is that we're trying to become. Man, wouldn't it be amazing if that were something we all worked for everyone, rather than thinking that's something just for some of us, right? So, Christian, absolutely a joy to hang out and chat, and I'm so glad that this worked out to do it. For anybody watching, first, make sure, if you have not yet, go see Christian's new single, I Still Have My Faith, available on YouTube. Drop a comment, like it, share it with your friends. It really is a powerful song wherever you find yourself in life. And then secondly, if you are a pastor of a church and want to bring in a musical guest, if you are a music promoter and would like to bring somebody to your event space, if you're hosting a festival and want to add to your bill, please reach out to Christian. Here's his booking information and website, and please do what his marketing and booking agents did not do well. Let's see if we can do that behind the scenes ourselves. And finally, if you are new, again, to my work, please go hop on to my Substack, Philosophy in the Wild. That will allow you to go a bunch of different places and get connected to the work I'm doing, trying to be a public philosopher in a world that I think needs more reason-giving, thinking well, seeing each other as discursive partners rather than just understanding each other as competitive enemies. And you can also go to my website, jaaronsimmons.com. And what you will find there is, I hope, a lot of opportunities for you to think well about what it looks like to live with other people who might think differently. And so finding ways to be in society together, to be neighbors with each other, even if we disagree, even if we push each other, finding ways to then hear each other and then move forward together. I can't imagine a world more productive than that. And so, Christian, thank you 1,000 times over. We're getting lots of comments in the chat saying thanks again. Thank you so much for what you've done. And so to everybody listening, thank you all for joining us. Christian, thank you for being here. And to everyone, stay well. If you've got comments, drop them even after this posts, and I will be happy to respond and would love to hear from all of you. So thanks.